All right, everybody, why don't we go ahead and get started? So good afternoon. Today's April 10th, 2025. This is Assembly Rules Committee. We're on the calendar from 1 to 3 p.m. It's 1:03 right now. We'll start with introductions. Mr. Johnson.
Zach Johnson.
Cameron Perez for DM.
Daniel Vollen.
Anna Brawley. Exalatel.
Christopher Constant. And on the phone, we have Mr. Salt.
Randy Salt here.
Thank you, Mr. Littlefield.
Here, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Littlefield. Mr. Myers. Thank you, and Mr. Martinez. All right, good afternoon. We have our legislative team, legal, some folks from the Department of Law. And I think that's everyone, and at least one member of the kind of incoming class of members of the Assembly. So we have on our agenda a few things. Employee of the quarter, we're going to delay that for a month. So hold. And for reports, the mayor sends her apologies for not being able to be here. They're having some staffing transition celebrations right now, as her first chief of staff is departing today. And I will offer, I don't have a ton of items to report. This is the last Rules Committee of this Assembly, and I'm sure we will have plenty to get through conversations and details today. With that said, on the 18th, just so folks know, I'm taking the youth members on a tour of the downtown city functions. So from 10 to noon we're going to do a walking tour of downtown, including the police department, the fire department, and the health department. And then we'll come back. We have a work session on the budget from, I think, 12 to 3 or 12 to 2. The youth members will sit with us, and then at 2 o'clock, they're going to go up and be introduced to the whole executive team of the municipality. And so the point being, to do this in the initial part of their kind of onboarding next go, but that they can actually meet and get the business cards and contacts and understand the basic operations of the administrative side. And I want to thank Heather McAlpine from the Ombudsman's office for helping organize that and the whole project. And otherwise, we have a whole slew of business that is coming. Today, we have our meeting with the joint meeting with the Native Village of Eklutna. We also have on the 16th at 1 p.m. a special meeting in which we will do our best to get through all of the port items and all of the remnant items that were moved to this agenda, including a handful of public hearings on land use and other concerns. And then we will convene back on the 22nd at a very important meeting in which we will certify the election. And so swear in new members and all of that jazz. So there is a lot coming forward. We're trying to make sure there is enough time to get through everything. So I've said it to some members, I'll say it to everybody, please look at the agenda for the 16th when it comes out. Look at the agenda for the 22nd real closely for items that if you feel like you need to vote on it, it has to happen tonight kind of a thing. We would like to know in advance as early as possible. So when we're planning out our approach to the final agenda and getting through this large stack of items, we're able to be strategic and we can let things move into the future that don't have a pressing crush to get done. And so with that, I think I will defer now over to the clerk.
Thank you. So yeah, like Christopher said, we had an election. Public session of canvas is scheduled for Thursday, the 17th. We have a work session from 2 to 4, and then the meeting is from 5 until 11. And then certification will be on the 22nd of April. We're also going to do the risk limiting audit on the 18th of April. We are still collecting and counting ballots that were postmarked on or before April 1st. And we're also still curing ballots along the way. The team called and emailed everyone who provided their phone numbers and email addresses and for the cure process. And then our team on the second floor has been doing an amazing job of keeping everything running on this side of things with all of the joint meetings, special meetings, and your regular and committee meetings. That's all I have.
Right, we'll go ahead with legislative services.
seems like a lifetime ago, but and accomplishments was the Coordinated Response to Homelessness Summit, with over 300 people attending and 500 views on YouTube. It was really unique to partner with two other organizations, Alaska Coalition to End Homelessness and the Mayor's Office. And it was added, some extra complications to coordinate between two organizations, but I think it was really neat and impactful for the public. So that was a ton of work that Allie did, and of course our partners in the Mayor's Office and ACH. I'm really excited that the administration put forward the first alcohol tax report. That was some legislation that you passed this January to require that. So that came out at Public Health and Safety meeting, and I'll be updating the Cheers to You Anchorage website, and then I'll share that with you all when it's orientation, partnering with the clerk's office on that. We do have a full body. Everyone's welcome to attend if you forgot how Robert's Rules works or anything like that, need a refresher. And then we're also going to have a wrap-up social event on that Thursday evening so that we can just kind of have the staff and branch socialize and get to know each other better. So that information will be coming out. We are moving along with our implementation of Hive, the project management software. So we're going to be getting into we're still working out some kinks, but we're going to be getting into a habit where Brandy sends each of you a dashboard to your current projects before the rules meeting. So that'll help refresh you for your reports here. And for those of you who haven't taken the orientation, I've emailed you, let me know, and we can schedule that so you can learn how to use it. And then two things coming up. In May, we partnered, Vera is the municipality's health services, and they offer really good workshops on different topics. So we are signed up for one on stress and resilience in May for the branch staff, and we'll invite assembly members as well. Figure you have some issues around those topics. And then last year you funded position for an assembly aide, but not full time. And so we're trying to figure out what to do with that. And so we'll be probably talking about that after you organize with the new body, what to do with a part-time aide that serves the whole body and just different ideas around that. So put your thinking caps on that one. And that is what I have for this month.
All right, thank you. Anything else from Legislative Services? Okay, next Assembly Council.
Yes, thank you. We've continued to juggle everything as usual, and we always have a lot on our plate. I want to thank Brandy for sending out our project list to the members and keeping us updated and helping with our transition to Hive and getting that set up. And so for my usual rules report, I've tried to give you some numbers, and we've updated our, work tracker. So we've had up to the Tuesday meeting. So we've published for this year, for April, 3 ordinances, and year to date, 22 produced by our office, and resolutions. We have, say 0 for April, but 5 year to date for ARs. Floor amendments, we had 8 for April from Tuesday, 43 floor amendments year to date. We had 3 laid on the table items, new laid on the table items for April, and 7 year to date. And we had 4 produced for supplemental laid on the table items, and 10 to date. So I think we're kept plenty busy by you all. Thank you. I think that's all I have. Always happy to answer any questions.
I would just offer to members that the Assembly leadership and Mr. Presverdia have interviewed a candidate for the 3rd position. Is a social gathering on of the Assembly Council and Mr. Gates and Mr. Hurt and Brandy to meet with the candidate just to see if there's a fit there. And then we may be.
Chair,
Hello?
we had a problem. We had a problem last meeting where the mic was cutting out. You might have that mic.
All right, hopefully that's a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you.
So what I was saying is that Assembly leadership with Mr. Presberdia and the clerk's office had an opportunity to meet with and interview a candidate for the third Assembly Council Office, Assembly Legal Office position. And we forwarded that candidate to meet with the folks who are working in the office for a chance to socialize and see if there is a fit there. And we may be moving towards hiring a candidate for that third position soon, which should give us a real full complement of skills and assets. So in the context of the legal department, there is some slow movement forward. All right, so finally, the ombudsman, or did you want to?
And we've had the labor budget for this position for the whole year.
Yeah, we definitely, it's hard to hire. But the federal policies made it easier to hire.
Hi, Heather McAlpine, Associate Ombudsman. Just really briefly, we have one thing we wanted to bring to your attention is that some assembly members have approached the office regarding some matters with towing. The specific issue, perhaps, one of the issues being that, how can I articulate? There's a concern that people who have had their vehicles towed and later have their charges dismissed. So for example, a DUI or as the code says, serious traffic offense, are going to court and having the charges dismissed, and yet they're still on the hook for the tow fees, which can come up to almost $1,000. So we're just looking at it. We don't have anything to report at this point, except that we did meet with legal just to start conversations. Changes. So we just wanted to let you know about that. We are also, just basically, if you have any thoughts on that or towing in general, we've been looking at towing for like over a decade now. It comes and goes, and there's often a lot of issues. So just that we're looking at it again. And the other thing was I was going to update Chris again. Stole my little spiel about the youth rep trip tour on the 18th. We're very much looking forward to that. I think it's pretty great. And just a reminder that we will have a meeting at Kaladi's at, 6 or 6:30. If you are interested, let me know. I can confirm. On Tutor will be the last mentoring meeting that we're having. I believe Anna's coming. Yeah, I mean, Assemblymember Brawley will be present, and Claire has agreed to come as well. The youth are working on a resolution, so it'll be really helpful to have Claire at that meeting. We'll see. I'm not sure how far along they are in the process. And the last word is that they will be at the meeting. All three will be present on the 22nd. It will be their last meeting. We do have two of them that are graduating, so just if you get the chance to congratulate them on that and then say goodbye, because that will be their last meeting. Thank you. Oh, and a little recognition at the dinner break. So that'll be an opportunity to speak to them. Claire.
All right, thank you, Heather. All right, so I think that gets us through the initial part of the agenda. At this point, it appears there's no unfinished business. And so I'm not going to take 20 minutes for this topic. Mr. Volland had asked the question and I had the thought, is there any objection to having the what do we call it? The member, it's not elect because it's not until it's certified, it's presumptive member come up and sit with us. So that question was asked, and is there any objection? Right, or if you'd like to come up, feel free to join us. So the discussion, this first part is, and speaking of the presumptive member, assembly aides traveling with members, we had a member make a request to take a trip, and it was kind of a gray area in the policy, and I approved it, and it was with their aide to participate in the trip with them. And there were some concerns because there was a car rented and there was no request made for the ability to rent a car, but our staff and the clerk side didn't kind of put a note on the table and say, hey, that needs to be approved or it's not within the policy. And so it just became fuzzy. And so fuzzy isn't great when you're dealing with these kind of issues. And so I'm reviewing the policy for the assembly member allotments, and there are just some discussions about the sustainability of that kind of travel. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I needed 20 minutes for this, but I just wanted to have that on the agenda so folks know that there is some conversation happening around the allotments and what the parameters are around the use of those funds. And so that's it, really. I just wanted to make sure it was at this table. So, and then there's a more in-depth discussion, Jasmine, on the topic of recognition resolutions. And so I said we would definitely host this conversation. It's essentially that we are finding ourselves in a position where we're spending an hour, 20 minutes, and that's not including fun rare performances, but when we have 7 to 10 recognition resolutions on the agenda, it's a bit over much. And so the clerk had asked for some time for discussion. Jasmine.
Yeah, so the clerk's office and legislative services have just been talking about the amount of pop-ups that we're seeing on top of our already pretty dense list for annual resolutions. And we recognize that it's every member's right to present one and have sponsor one. And we think it's an incredible opportunity to honor the community this way, but we were hoping to find a way to mitigate it. We noticed that at the 18 meeting for 7 resolutions, it took about 48 minutes. And that's not including the fun ones, like Christopher said, those are outliers. So we had an idea that maybe we put a maximum of resolutions that we read and present per meeting with a focus on the newer pop-ups so that we're reaching more of the community. This wouldn't be applicable to all meetings because I recognize that all are not going to have 7 to 10 resolutions. Some only have 3 or 4. So we were just hoping to brainstorm how we could mitigate it. And resolutions can be submitted to the agenda still without having to be read. And my team would be happy to process these and still mail out presentation files per request.
So I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Mr. Myers, I think you need to put that on the record.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say I like this idea. I think it will help make our meetings move faster.
The direct quote is, quote, "This makes me very happy." So, yeah, exactly. Mr. Johnson, or Scott, or Zach, sorry, Zach, try to go to first name, Zach.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I mean, I love a lot of these recognition resolutions and what they do. And I haven't done the kind of analysis to figure out where we spend more of the time. I know that we give people an opportunity to speak after they get the resolution, and usually take 1 or 2 minutes. I think there have been some that have kind of stretched into maybe the 5 to 10 minute realm. So I wonder if one of the things we might do is put a time cap on how long people can spend speaking after they receive the resolution.
And I think there's one legendary time when that happened, and we changed certain policies already because of it. And so you're not wrong. Other ideas, thoughts? Cameron?
First, I want to understand the proposal. Is the proposal just to, I guess I heard 2 things, limit the number per meeting and to focus on newer ones?
Yeah, so we were thinking because we don't get pop-ups every meeting.
What is a
We are-
pop-up?
So that is going to be, so we have 43 annual ones that we do every single year. And so when a member asks us to write a new one, we call that a pop-up
I see.
resolution. And so our focus would be on those newer ones to hit more members of the community.
And not do the more established ones?
Yeah, that we've done over the years, yeah.
Or not to not do them, but to, if it's a busy role, is that what it is? If
Yeah.
There's a lot, then to prioritize.
To
them.
prioritize the newer ones, yeah, if there's.
Would that eliminate the other, that's the question, that you have the 43 and you would have a number that you would do per meeting and you would prioritize the pop-ups. So would some of the 43 just not happen?
We could still publish them on the agenda and send presentation copies, but they essentially just wouldn't be read and presented at the meeting.
I see.
So they
So
would still be available.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I, as others, I think this is an important topic, and I think that there are a variety of ways of recognizing people. And I think that's partly what I want to think about in terms of what kind of creative way that we can still recognize people. I think part of it is coming to the assembly meeting and going through the whole thing. And I think that the process in which we do it is part of the time frame, right? Having everybody come up, reading the entire thing out loud. I'm not sure that's necessary to read it. I don't know if it is. And then having them speak, and then having the picture taken, and all of these things. So I think if the goal is to recognize people, we could do that in a much shorter time frame. I would just also say that I do think this is very important. I think the recognitions are very important, and I think that we want to make sure that we're doing them. So that would just be my feedback. Is I think you're on the right track of trying to figure out how to continue to do them. I'm not sure I agree with prioritizing a pop-up over an established one. I'm not sure why that is a priority. I think figuring out a way for us to shorten the amount of time that is used in terms of doing it seems like a really logical and thoughtful thing to do. So.
I have a number of folks in the queue. Ms. Altel, Meg.
Yeah, so one of my thoughts is maybe to combine the opportunity for some to get their recognition resolutions either at an appropriate committee or rules committee if they are more tied to particular work as well, to save some of that time, but still be able to do the full recognition. I think along with Cameron's point, some of these things we recognize as a community-wide thing, like Black History Month or Women's Month or those types of things. I wouldn't want to push those for something else. So just trying to find out where else we could get folks that photo opportunity or other things. Not that they wouldn't be passed. I know the chair recently had a resolution that is going to be presented actually at a community event. So just kind of trying to balance all of those various venues. The question I have though is, where's your capacity lie? Because I think that's my concern, is that the clerk's office and legislative staff are often preparing these. So is there just a reasonable limit that we should just make the body aware of? And you may not know the answer to that now, but I think that would be really good if there is an absolute, like there's just a limit and that a limit is the limit. That's fine.
Yeah, we don't have a limit right now. I think we would have to discuss it further on what that limit would be for us.
We'll go through, I'll put you on the list, Claire. So I have myself, and I'll just say that the goal isn't just to recognize people, but in some cases it is also to hear from people. And so to hear firsthand what they're doing and why. So I want us to be careful not to lose that value in the process. But I also obviously recognize the need for efficiency, and it could be, I hate to belabor this meeting, and this meeting doesn't always happen, but it could be we set up some process in advance where members could generally at a meeting collectively prioritize, and kind of we get a sense of these ones are the ones we really want to see in the next quarter. They're coming. I don't know, but that's just an idea to add to the list of some way to kind of pre-screen the time we're going to be spending in upcoming meetings. Mr. Walland,
Yeah, so I actually really like the recognition resolutions, and particularly the ones that seem not just more novel, but are like a really special opportunity to recognize someone who's done something amazing in the community. I think it might be worth looking at the annualized list and see which ones could go. For instance, maybe the Safe Digging Month. I don't think
it's gonna create a war.
I knew. I was trolling Member Solotel with that one, but
Appearance requests.
we also do have the Ombudsman Award that we have presented a few times here at this committee meeting, and I forget what the name of that one was. Above and Beyond, but I think that's also a great way to recognize people.
Right, utilize this committee as a venue, which is great. It's not the same for the members of the public, but yeah. Anna.
Yeah, I'll just add two things. I agree with a lot of what was said. Cameron's point about whether we read the whole thing out loud is interesting. Maybe there's a way to only read the resolve, and maybe there's a way to they would start getting written so that the resolve part is longer, I imagine, but that's something that might shorten some time, but still, get to the point. And then the other one just to put on the table is I know we haven't had a lot of them lately, but staff retirements. I know those are often, and I think the threshold has been 15 years or something, so it's not just when someone leaves. So I don't want to lose sight of that because those are pop-ups. And it seems like people do get a lot of value out of that. They bring their families. So, but otherwise I agree generally with, or I, agree with the intent here, but that's just another one that I hadn't heard said yet. Thanks.
All right, I have Claire.
I just wanted to clarify that for most meetings of the year, there's 1 to 3 resolutions, and so we can read the whole thing and people can speak and it doesn't really affect the meeting that much. We're just talking about, and Jasmine has them, and there's just a handful of dates right around now that really get packed. And so we have gone through that list of annual resolutions and got rid of a bunch of people who don't come anymore or weren't really interested. So we have cleaned that out. And then we get to the issue where it's hard to remove what we have left because there's always someone who wants it. So it's really only maybe 3 or 4 meetings a year that we get this. And then I was going to say some of the last, for our capacity, speaking for myself, it seems reasonable. We each take 2 to 3 a year, and then we take turns doing the pop-ups. They just, the clerk's office has a running list and passes them along. And so some of the ones that maybe seem like a pain because they're in the last minute right before, are like the young gal who won the civics bee or the Hadestown. And it's like, yeah, it's a little bit beyond our capacity, but it's worth it because those ones are really meaningful. So I think Jasmine should speak too, but I just wanted to say those things.
Yeah, to Claire's point, so I looked at our annual list, and March, April, May, November tend to be our busiest months. And so, like she said, it wouldn't affect every single meeting. There's just certain meetings we have where they're piling up. And then as we get the pop-ups on top of it, we're seeing 7, 8, 9 resolutions.
It's worth noting that those months are very critical months because they involve budget and they involve first quarter and it's like everything everywhere all at once. Like this is just what's happening. And so it's fascinating that those are the times when everything piles up. We don't control when Women's History Month is or Black History Month is, or, but we have our agenda in a cycle. So Daryl.
Thanks, Chris. I've written hundreds of resolutions over the years, I think. And I think there's an opportunity for a lot of the annual ones that are very meaningful rather than presenting them at the assembly meeting. And I hear frequently from community groups, it's hard for them to get there at 5:30 or 6. They're coming from work. The agenda may sometimes be reordered. For some of these, the assembly then gets a request to present that resolution at a community event. So some of these resolutions, perhaps the clerk's office or the assembly members could allow them the choice of having it presented at the assembly meeting or at the, for the Polynesian community, their event on the Park Strip or Pride Fest or there are always Black History Month events going on. So for some organizations, they may prefer to have those presented at the community event rather than the assembly meeting. That more of their community could attend. It might be more meaningful than trying to rush during rush hour traffic over to the assembly chambers. Also, for a lot of the employees who are retiring, sometimes it's not convenient for them. So perhaps giving the department that is sponsoring it the choice of presenting it at a staff meeting. So for our Above and Beyond awards that go to municipal employees, we always find whether it's the monthly safety meeting or the monthly staff meeting or a weekly staff meeting, we go out and present it at the department in front of the employees' coworkers. So I think there's a lot of options as to where it could be presented, because some of these community awards, you're going to get people talking for 20 minutes. So just a thought.
Right. The queue continues. I have Cameron and then Anna.
So I don't want to take this in a different direction, but one of the things that I have recognized or noticed over the years of being on the assembly is that there's a lot of tradition that we have that that I've questioned. And for instance, there are groups that come up each year, and we have the Scouts come up, right? We don't have the Girl Scouts come up. We don't have a lot of other groups come up. We recognize groups on an annual basis. I think there's another group of academic folks that we come up every year. I forget the guy's name, but there's a whole bunch of other academic award things that we don't. And there's a lot of nonprofits that are linked to a resolution, but there's a lot that aren't linked to the resolution. So every year we hear from the same, so I guess one of the things I'm saying is that I don't want to stop doing it. I think it's wonderful, but I've often thought, about this list that we have that's just we recycle every year, and how that lands on others that aren't being recognized or that aren't brought up and that sort of thing. So that's partly what I'm thinking through is a lot of this is just sort of inertia from years of doing it, and it may be worthwhile to have a conversation about it. Because I'm not sure that we want twice as many as what we have now. But I think that the process of deciding who we have and when we do it and what we do, I think that a lot of it is just because that's what we've always done. So I just wanted to recognize that, not that we don't want to recognize them, but as a person that comes from the nonprofit world, I've often thought, wow, why are they here every year, and why aren't that group here? And because that group's really awesome too and doing really incredible work. And so some of the resolutions is like recognizing the work of a particular nonprofit. And I thought, man, that doesn't seem like what we should be doing, because we don't do it for all, right? So anyway, just wanted to put that on the record. And as we're thinking through this, I think both being more efficient with it or talking about it and making sure that we're recognizing people, and we're thinking about how we're distributing this love and this recognition throughout our city. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, just to briefly add, I know the equivalent at the state legislature, sort of equivalent, is the legislative citation. And so my observation is those really just get moved through a regular meeting, and then they essentially milk that the rest of the year when they come back. And so just to echo Daryl's point, I think there's a lot of that is a tradition that exists in that space, and we're not trying to duplicate that. But I think most of those are really presented at a time and place that is meaningful for that group or that person. And so that is something to think about. Thanks.
Go ahead, Megan.
Thanks. I want to pile on to what Cameron said, because I took the lead with the Ombudsman's office one year on Black History Month, and we got participation that was far above and beyond, and it was really, really cool. And I dropped the ball and never did it again. And it is some of that capacity, but I think that that's really important. I think that year we had Black sororities and fraternities show up. We had just more than the groups we usually turn to. And it was really special when that did happen. So, if you happen to have something near and dear to your heart, like Safe Digging Month, you could maybe dig in to those resolutions and join efforts with the clerk's office, legislative staff, and ombudsman.
And to follow on that one, to put the pipeline in place so that we get people here who are more meaningful to the question or more contemporary. So the counterpoint to the idea of, maybe you didn't suggest do less because we didn't do everybody. I want to make sure we don't not recognize people because we're afraid we didn't recognize everybody. And so that's the other side of that coin that I want to be very careful of. But I think maybe this speaks to, and we kind of do this internally, but an annual process where probably at this committee, we take that list and we see if there are champions that are the ones who are going to support that one. So instead of having them be default in everybody's name, we boil it down to those that have a champion identified on the body who will be there at that time. And in so doing, then that person or that group of people could be challenged with ensuring that it's meaningful, it's got the right people. And the one thing I don't want to do is kind of institute a process that kind of puts any squeeze on members being able to bring forward matters worthy of being considered before us. And so that's the balancing act, right? Every member has a right. Not every member does, and probably many members don't think about it because they don't never done it or it's not their work. But you all have that right. We all have that right. And I don't want to create a structure where that's truncated, but a process by which we identify annually who is the lead might then avoid some of these that are just the inertia based ones. And so I can say that there have been a few that I get almost frustrated because you have a certain set of people coming multiple times a year and it's taking up real bandwidth of our time. And it's like, it's so weird to me. And I don't publicly chafe at it in the sense that it is what it is, but it just feels like we could do a better job. So I'm glad for this conversation. If there's no one else, we'll move on to the next topic. So the next topic is with Claire up. And Ellie, this is going to be our Q1 progress report on the assembly work plan.
Probably in June, when we have the formation of the new body, we'll go into this in more detail. And like last year, you guys went line by line. But I just we're just finished the first quarter. So I just wanted to put this work plan or the progress report in front of your eyes. See, give it, departing members, you can't add any more legislation, but perhaps there's items that you're on that you want to keep going and you maybe want to do a handoff to someone else. So Jamie's gonna pull it up on the big screen. So we won't go line by line, but maybe I'll just go section by section. You all have it in front of you too. Does anyone have any updates they'd like to make to the housing action project section?
Yeah, I don't have an update. I'll just say I provided Claire some written updates just on status updates of things that I was aware of. So just to say that.
Okay. Right. Good government. It looks like housing has a lot of action. Good government is the next section, not as much action. Any updates there, or maybe just look through them, see if your name's on any of them that you might want to get started after this upcoming rush of legislation. Yeah, you're not allowed to introduce any more legislation.
No, we have a special meeting. I don't know if that's 7 days. But.
You have 2 more meetings. So, yeah.
Members can at any point introduce.
Any member can.
I haven't.
Okay, Ms. Alto, Meg.
On the Federal Archives site, I think, one, you can take me off because it will be Felix. I want to somehow show on there collaborative effort underway with the mayor's office to provide a vision, period, something like that. Thanks. And then I guess on the, Clouda down. Yep, perfect. It's not complete though. It's in progress. Oh. The RFP has not gone out.
I think that was an accident to put complete.
I love your ambition. We're taking a little bit more time.
Other inputs?
All right, moving on to good government. And Meg, while you're gone, I did say for departing members to look through the list if there's stuff that your name is on that's important, but you're not going to get to work on it to pass it on to someone else.
So there is one there, and we'll brief it when we get to upcoming legislation, I'm sure, but the records process AO is almost ready for prime time. So it is drafting.
That's that second to last one. Okay. Okay, economic development projects.
Meg.
I don't see the port on here anywhere. Would the port be part of economic development? I mean, certainly.
Oh, I thought that was done. No.
Or is that somewhere else? I'm sorry, and I'm not maybe keeping up with.
It goes back and forth. It might have gotten dropped. Because we used to have an infrastructure section, but
Oh, on the infrastructure?
I don't think we have that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, there's stuff that bounces back between infrastructure and economic development that we.
Infrastructure
Oh, yeah.
must be the second to
The last
last
section.
page. Quality of life, safety projects. Okay.
Oh, sorry. On the printed copy, the title is at the bottom of one page and then the table's on the second to last page.
Oh, okay, thank you. There we go. Infrastructure and transportation projects. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, back to economic development. Any updates there? Okay.
Well, yeah, I do have a quick question. Why are the comp plans in economic development, neither of them deal with the economics of either of those towns in any substantial, or parts of town in any substantial way, versus being more about housing, and they really are both housing focused?
Right, and so I can speak to why, not that it's a great idea why, but for when I first got on the body and before me, there was a Title 21 working group. And the CEDC committee was the Title 21 committee before that. And so they were the ones working on the new Title 21 and reviewing all of those codes. And then they transformed to being the marijuana licensing working group that basically was the Weddleton Sphere out at the Planning and Permitting Center that worked in that space. And so my kind of perspective, I wish Barbara hadn't just left. She probably has some ideas, and Dean probably would remember this as well as anyone. That's kind of the trajectory of how it became what it is now, is it was Title 21 and it was marijuana, and then it became this economic development community thing.
Alright.
So, but that's not to say that those items should go there, because maybe they do have some economic development nexus. It is definitely housing and neighborhoods, and so I think that's really why the agencies that are involved, ACDA, the development services, planning, real estate, et cetera, that's why it's there. And so it could move if there was a recommendation to move it.
Okay, homelessness projects. Assembly business projects. I'm going to add in progress to the youth representative program because Heather has been doing a lot of work on that. Okay. Public health, safety, and quality of life projects. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, this draft you created last January or so, and then the chair sent it to administration, and they have added there's a column at the very end. You probably already noticed this already, but there's a column at the very end, and he sent it to the administration, and they've all looked through it and added the things that they're working on. So this is up to date with the mayor's office staff priorities.
Meg.
Yeah, you can go ahead and pull off identify steps needed to complete the crisis now continuum. Pull it completely off of there, please. They're not ready.
Okay, infrastructure and transportation projects.
I don't know, I never got it on there, but I would love to have, so it can be completed, because it's up before us soon. Long-range transportation strategy. Create and adopt a long-range transportation strategy. Thanks. I don't know how it never got on there. It's been pending for a while. That was started with John Weddleton and I. So probably ARPA, and then Dan and I, and maybe soon to conclusion.
All right, then I will remind you, you had a discussion probably at a rules meeting in January and February about, this is just a really big, long list of everyone's wish lists, and maybe there's a way to narrow it down. And then some people thought, no, you don't want to narrow it down. You like it the way it is. But I did want to just put this idea in your head that perhaps after the new body forms that you might want to hold a retreat and do some prioritization narrowing down. Not saying it's good one way or another, but just putting that idea in your head that if you did want to prioritize, that might be a good way to do it. The Assembly has held retreats in the past to do that sort of thing. And then finally, if you'll notice on the last page, I put in a section for your 2026 budget goals. And so you'll work with the budget analysis, Matt Farina, at some point in this summer to develop your goals for capital projects and operating budget and that sort of thing that you can enter in here to track for the second half of the year. I think that's all unless anyone has anything else.
So, and for the new members, just know that when the word retreat is said, it doesn't mean an actual retreat like you might otherwise think. It means going somewhere else, maybe having a longer format meeting, but still it's an open meeting, just like every other meeting that we as Assembly members conduct.
But you could still do trust falls if you want.
Yes, trust falls are still on the agenda or something similar. Claire agrees to lead. First in. Okay, anything else on the work plan? So, and again, I think Claire, you said it, that this will be something that the new members and we all kind of look at a little bit more fully in June. Or maybe thereafter, depending on the nature of the volume of water pouring through the fire hose at the new members, their ability to receive information. So the timing of that will be when it makes sense. And so, okay, anything else on that? Now the fun part of the meeting, and this meeting appears that it will be done a bit early, which is great. We do have our joint meeting with the Native Village of Eklutna today at 4, and so don't go far. We want to have a good showing at that meeting. But this last item is the traditional Assembly member discussion of pending business or updates. So I know that I received an awesome email from Brandy this morning that was requested last month that is kind of the various projects that I have to go through. So I'm hoping everybody who has projects received a similar email. Okay, so, and then I don't know if I have all mine or anything, but I did print that. Okay. Right, the link that you get won't show privileged projects that are held by Assembly Council. And so there's a separate process for that. I think that mine are there, but I don't know. So we're working that out so that you have the tool to be able to see what you're working on, because it's hard to keep it all in your mind. So I'm grateful for the progress on that at least. We'll start this time on the phone. And Mr. Salt, you want to start with any projects you're bringing forward?
No, I'm good. The only one I have left is the one on Huff and Kratom, and then the one on Town Square Park solar rights. And I am done. I'm passing everything else on to Keith and Zach. Thank you.
Already on the agenda. Mr. Martinez?
Nothing, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Myers?
Thanks, Chair. A couple things I need to chat with Meg and Mark about, but I can handle that offline. It's nothing pressing for the whole body.
All right, Mr. Littlefield.
Nothing, Chair. Everything that I have going is coming up in the next 12 days. So we're good. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, who's counting, as Claire said. Zach?
Nothing for me today.
Cameron?
No, I think I'm good for now. Thanks.
Daniel?
I think I'm also good.
Right, I don't think you have any specific projects yet, Yarrow.
Well, I've been checking boxes, but we can talk about it later.
All right, Anna?
Yeah, I'll just mention a couple. These are more related to the budget. Just following up the fiscal future discussion. I know Felix has expressed interest. I'm interested. So trying to figure out what a small 1/4 budget amendment might be for that, and what it would be specifically used for. So look for that soon. And then also just to say thanks for the body for passing the public safety, community involvement task force. So I think I know Felix is working on that. There's a small budget amendment for that as well to support, I think, local facilitation, essentially. I think that was discussed in our meeting Tuesday. So more on that. Yeah, I think we'll be looking for kind of how others can be involved in that as well as it goes forward. Thanks.
Meg.
I think everything's in except for the one I just emailed Dean and Matthew about during the meeting. This meeting here. Because, while I still have time. No, but I do want to share, if I may, share a couple of things. One, I'm coming off of AMATs and budget and the work at Eklutna. Those are all really big pieces. We've had this conversation a little bit, but I would really, if you're not involved in something that, a seminal piece of work that this body has to do no matter what, I would really ask that you think about that and if you have capacity for it. Also, we do have at the special meeting the items on the port. So I would really encourage you, those are all you have all the records to take a look at those and get your questions to the administration, because now that is not a standalone special meeting for the port. And so we want to use that time efficiently. I know I put some questions into public finance in particular. So just take a look at those really closely. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, which one? The records? I'm going to leave that one as a surprise. I'm not talking about that one.
Meg has asked I not talk about an item, so.
Maybe I'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you hear that last minute? Okay, you might recall, now it's my turn, that we did a park dedication track J. And there is a project coming forward to somewhat realign the boundary, which will move a portion back into the port and then add some from the port back into the park. It will add some restrictions into the plat that would require where the gate would go. So the gate would not be on the street, but would actually be offset because they need a gate for the emergency road. It would also have a note to define what an emergency use is in the plat, not in the code. So any given Tuesday, it couldn't just be changed. And so it's a consensus project that is bringing together the Government Hill Community Council perspective with the port and the parks team. It would eliminate the part that will be the road from the parks department. They don't want to have to manage a road that's a block wide for the port in any universe. And so it's not super complicated, but it will probably be like 3 inches thick because of the historic record of the property. We might just figure out a way to reference all of that stuff, but you've already done it. There's going to be a request to do just a little bit more. Some of the projects I'm guessing are so old, I don't even remember what they are. So I won't mention them. There is still discussions about a cap on the number of marijuana licenses in town. The trick to creating the cap is not creating a secondary market. We don't want to create a black market or a secondary gray market for marijuana licenses like we have for alcohol licenses. And so it's not as easy as just saying you can have this many. So it's a project that's been ongoing. There's a project that I have, but it hasn't been a pressing priority. I'll just let folks know when we made it kind of legal for the e-bikes to be more expansive. I think that we did something inadvertent in making it possible for those electronic scooters to go everywhere without consideration. And so I think we made it by right. And I don't know that we intended to do that. So I have a project that's going to bring that question back up so we can talk it through, specifically that function. I don't know when. It's not a super priority. There was an effort I was working on. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not probably going to proceed on it. It's the Z-Tag registration process. And it's great in concept, but I haven't been able to figure out how to finance it because it will be a $14 million hit to our tax cap. And so for the fiscal note, I just can't conceive of bringing it forward because we can't just tax for that and fill the hole. We would just, a Z-Tag is a permanent registration on a car over 7 years old, so you don't have to register it every 2 years. And so if I could come up with a way to replace $14 million, I'd think about it. But at this point, because of the fiscal note, I just can't do it for now. Yeah. Dean.
It would just get spread to the property tax base when we set our mill levies.
And then
That's how
our
you feel that
ability
happens
to
under
pay
the
for
tax
other
cap.
services would come down. So we would have to choose, do we want police or do we want Z tags? Or do we want fire or do we want Z tags? Or do we want, health department workers or Z tags? Or do we want, right. And so for me, yes, it would just shift to the property tax, but we're at the tax cap. And so the $14 million would be, we'd have to cut $14 million. And I just can't conceive of doing that.
Well, we can talk about it later offline.
So that's a project that I had spoken about here before that I just think I have to pull off. Public Records AO is coming. There's some discussion about putting forward a requirement for municipal contractors to provide audits. That has been the case for grantees, but not for contractors. And so it's an interesting area of the law. I'm still waiting for a report back from the traffic department on their policy for utilization of traffic camera footage. Brad has confirmed he's going to get me something, and he said it 3 times, Brad Coy. And so at some point I may take the next assertive step and say, okay, if we don't have it by a time specific, then this is the time we need this by resolution. And so why? Because we are creating and generating vast treasuries of footage, and there's no guidance on how that footage should be used. So there were some reports in previous administrations going into the traffic camera room and doing God knows what with the footage. And so we need some guidance around that. There's also an ordinance that I haven't quite had a chance to share with the mayor that makes it really clear, and this was a Bronson era policy. We had to figure out that the assembly branch is not de facto required or default required to be in compliance with administration policy. And, because they can't levy policies on us. We have to accept those policies. So I have a code amendment that makes it really clear. And my next stop is visit with the mayor to talk it through. Mr. Rivera and I have been in discussions. There is a version of a ranked choice voting ordinance. It's not introduced. It's probably not yet ready for prime time because it needs some punching bag opportunity to get beat up on a little bit before it becomes public. And that's kind of my list that I have been sitting on for probably over a year. So that's an update from me. Is there anything else, folks? I'm not seeing or hearing anything else. So it is 2 hours until we meet with the Native Village of Eklutna. I would hope that you can all make it back for that meeting. Anna?
Yeah, I have one question because I need to go back to my agenda from Tuesday, but just to make sure, because I know there were some things that we proactively postponed to the 22nd, and then I think everything that isn't in that category just rolls on to the 16th. Is that correct? Okay.
No. It's the opposite.
Yeah, just
Go
some
ahead.
general guidance.
All right,
for
so
tracking.
there were a few items that we were waiving planning and zoning, and those all went to the 22nd. So that's the rezone and the water issue out in Eagle River, I can't say it. What's the word?
Putrescible.
That word. Yep. That one. As well as the appeals process. Those all went to the 22nd. And then the motion towards the end of the night moved nearly everything else over to the 16th. That was A through, I believe, H, M, and a couple others. And that included the tax abatement item did move to the 16th. It did not go to the 22nd for its first public hearing, because I do understand that there were still being asked to take action on that one on the 22nd.
I think there were some items that were not captured. Go ahead, Jamie.
The clerk's office makes an action agenda after every meeting. So why don't I just forward that to everyone, and then you'll know exactly where everything landed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
Okay, is there anything else? So again, I'll end where I started. We have a couple of pretty critical meetings coming up. Today at 4, we have the Native Village of Eklutna. On the 16th at 1 p.m. till 4, probably a little bit later. We have all those items, the port in particular, and a handful of items that were on the agenda. a big handful. And then we have the 22nd, which has the budget and the certification and the swearing in. So some pretty important meetings coming right up. So everybody, please, as best possible, be there. I think somebody had told me that they are not going to be able to be there on the 22nd. Was okay. That was you. You said you were gonna be on the phone, which is fine. So otherwise, it's all on track. Thank you, everybody.
Can we-
That's probably a good thing. We'll try on Monday, the 21st, to have kind of a report out to everybody on the work plan for the meeting on the 22nd. We'll just, after our Friday meeting with the administration, we'll get together and do our best to do what we would do on Tuesday, but do it on Monday so that folks have that information. We'll still do our Tuesday meeting because everything changes from Monday to Tuesday. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll be adjourned.